All right, excuse me. So we're going to talk about solving inequalities today. Just like solving equations, the only thing that's different is when you multiply or divide by a negative number, remember we have to flip the sign. We're going to talk about interval notation. That's how, like writing negative infinity to whatever. We're going to talk about open and closed dots, that sort of thing. So the first thing I'd like you to do is write this down. If we have a greater than or a less than sign, this is going to be considered an open dot. It does not include the value. And it's going to have a parenthesis on it. So if you have an open dot, right, that means it's just less than, greater than, not or equal to. You're going to have an open dot. It doesn't include the value that's there. And you're going to use parentheses. If you have greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, the little line underneath, that's going to be a closed dot. Like this. I'll show you what I mean in a second. Closed dot. It does include the value. And you use brackets. All right, that's really important to remember. If you have an less than, greater than, no or equal to underneath, it's going to be an open dot on your graph. It does not include the value, and use parentheses. If you have a less than, greater than, or equal to, the line underneath, it means you have a closed dot. It does include the value, and you use brackets. Anytime we talk about infinity, whether it's negative or positive, if you're coming from negative infinity going towards positive infinity, you always have a parenthesis. Infinity always has parentheses because there's no specific stopping point that you can say, okay, infinity stops right here. So that's super important that you guys have that. Okay, so let's move along. Let's just do some problems. All right, if we're going to solve an inequality, you solve it the exact same way that you would solve an equation. You want to get x's on one side, numbers on the other. So in this case, I'm just going to subtract 9x from both sides. And I get 3 minus 9x is negative 6x less than 4. You guys with me? All right, now I want to get x all by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 6. Now, when I do that, I'm dividing by a negative number. So what do I do to the inequality sign? We're going to flip it. So x is greater than, and I'm going to say negative 2/3. There are 3 parts to every one of these answers. I need to see all 3 parts, so make sure you guys are aware of that. That's the first part of my answer. Now I'm going to graph it. What I need to see from you guys on the graph is the point or points that you're referring to. So in this case, it would be negative 2/3. And I have to see 0. If you want to put all the tick marks out, that's fine, but I don't need to see all of that. I need to see that you understand that 0 is somewhere in the middle, and that negative 2/3 would be to the left of 0. Now, we're going to talk about graphing. What kind of a dot am I going to have at negative 2/3? Is it open or closed? How come?
Open.
Yep, open, because there's no equal to underneath. So I'm going to have an open dot at 2/3. And if I read that inequality, it says x is greater than, x is bigger than negative 2/3. So which way am I going to color? To the right. Here's a little trick. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this little trick, but watch. If I put a little line right here in my inequality sign, which way is the arrow pointing? That's the way you shade. That'll work every time. So that's part B. That's the second part of your answer. So you have your inequality statement, then you have your graph, and then now we're going to write our interval notation. And the way we do that, we always read from left to right. Negative infinity is to the left, positive infinity is to the right. So going from left to right, where does my red graph start? At negative 2/3. And it goes on to what? Infinity. And what am I going to have on both ends of negative 2/3 and infinity? Parentheses. Good. That's part 3 of my answer. So when you guys have a question like this on a test or a quiz, I have to see all 3 of those things. Does that make sense? Okay, you guys at home, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so if I move down to this one looks a little different, and that's okay. But again, when we're solving, we want to get x all by itself. So if I was just looking at 3x minus 2, if I wanted that minus 2 to go away, what would I have to do? What's the opposite of minus 2? I'm going to add 2. So watch, I'm going to add 2 here, and then I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Whatever you do to one side of the inequality, you have to do to the other. So this cancels out. I'm left with 4 plus 2 is 6, less than or equal to 3x, less than 13 and 2 is 15. Everybody with me? Okay, now I want x all by itself, so what would I do? I'm going to divide this by 3. So that means I have to do what to both sides? Divide by 3. Good. It's a positive 3, so I don't have to worry about flipping any signs or anything. So 6 divided by 3 is 2, less than or equal to x less than 5. All right, that's the first part of my answer. The second part of my answer, I'm going to graph it. So in this case, I have 0. What other 2 points do I have to have in my graph? 2 and 5. So 2 and 5. So let's talk about our graph. What kind of a dot do I have at 2? I have a closed because it's got an equal to sign. Good. What kind of a dot do I have at 5? Open. Good. Now, guys, physically, where is x compared to 2 and 5 when I look at my inequality statement? Where is it placed? It's in between 2 and 5. So where do you think I should color? In between 2 and 5. Good. And that's exactly what your domain is when you go to write it. I always start over here at negative infinity, and it goes to positive infinity. Well, where does my black graph start? At 2, and where does it stop? At 5. What's going to be around 2, and what's going to be around 5? A what? A bracket at 2 and a parenthesis on 5. Why is it a bracket, guys, on 2, but a parenthesis on 5? Perfect. Good job, Justin. Because the 2 has a closed dot, the 5 has an open dot. So this whole thing, ladies and gents, is my answer. Is this incredibly difficult? No. Tomorrow might be a little yuckier, but we're starting off slow.
So in the work and everything, you write it like that, like 2 different.
They're on the web assign. They're going to have you write in interval notation like that, and they have graphs already drawn. You should be able to start. I should give you guys about 5 minutes. First period was able to, and they were. It was good for asking questions, so we can all figure out how to graph. But it was pretty smooth. We already had people turn it in, so we're good. All right. So all we're going to do now is the practice problems. This is not a trick question. I did this last night, and I forgot to put an X there, so go ahead and write an X. 2 is obviously not greater than or equal to 8. So let's just solve. We're going to do all 3 things. We're going to solve, we're going to graph, and we're going to write our interval notation. So first thing I'm going to do, get x by itself, is divide both sides by 2. So I get x is greater than or equal to 4. All right, so if I graph, I have to have 0 on my number line, and I have to have 4. What kind of a dot do I have at 4? Close, because it says equal to. Good. Look, I can put a little arrow right there. Which way do I color? To the right. Good. Now remember, for our interval notation, we read from left to right. So where does my graph start? At 4. And where does it end? Perfect. So I have a bracket on 4 and a parenthesis on infinity, because 4 is closed. That means it includes 4, and infinity does not have a stopping point. So there is our complete answer. Okay? Okay, stop me at any time, guys. Okay, solve this like it's an equation. What would I do to get x all by itself? First thing I do. Subtract 11. Perfect. So 3x is less than negative 6. Okay. Divide both sides by 3. Am I dividing by a negative number? Am I dividing by a negative number? No, right? So we're good. I don't have to flip anything. No, I'm not dividing. 3 is positive that I'm dividing by. I'm dividing it into a negative number, but I'm not dividing by a negative. So this is going to just stay. The sign will stay. So you have x is less than negative 2. So when we graph 0, negative 2 is over there. What kind of a dot do I have at negative 2? Open, because it's not equal to. And which way am I going to color? To the left. Great. Good job. So when I write my interval notation, where does my graph start? I read left to right. Negative infinity, and it goes to what? Good. Questions at home? Questions here? We're good? Okay. All right, same thing. Let's subtract 5 from both sides. So I have negative 4 is less than negative 2x. Now what? Divide by negative 2. Divide by what? Negative 2. If I divide by negative 2, what happens to my inequality sign? We flip it. Good. Negative 4 divided by negative 2 is 2. A lot of you don't like the way that looks. I don't. It just looks gross. It says 2 is greater than x. If you just read it backwards, that's how you can write it. You could say x is less than 2 to change it. Now I feel better. It looks better. But if you can leave it like that. It doesn't matter. Either way. But if I'm going to graph this, I'm at 0 and I have 2. What kind of a dot do I have at 2? Open. Good. And which way am I going to color? To the where? Think about, you want all the numbers that are less than 2. So when we rewrite it, we're this way. That trick only works if you have it written where x is on the left-hand side. But what's my what's my interval notation here? Negative infinity to 2, and I have brackets or parentheses. Brackets or parentheses? Good, because it does not include. Good job. Good job, Hannah. Wrong schedule. That's for a normal day. All right, here we go. This is just like a normal equation. You guys know how to distribute and combine like terms and all that good stuff. We're going to do the exact same thing, and then we're going to just treat our inequality sign accordingly. So I'm going to distribute the 2 first. So I have 14x minus 6 less than or equal to 12x plus 16. Now we're going to get x's on one side and numbers on the other. I like to move x's to the left. So I'm going to subtract 12x, and then I'm going to add 6. You guys with me? I did 2 steps in one. Okay, so 14 minus 12 gives me 2. So 2x less than or equal to, what's 16 and 6? Perfect. And now to get x by itself, we do what? Divide both sides by 2. Good. So x is less than or equal to 11. If I'm going to graph it, I want to see 0. Whoops. And 11 is to the right of 0. So what kind of a dot am I going to have? Closed dot, because it's or equal to, that looks like a 4. And then which way am I going to color? To the where? To the left. Perfect. So my interval notation, as we read from left to right, is negative infinity to what number? And is it a bracket or a parenthesis? Perfect. Very good job. How are we doing at home?
Good.
Thank you. Did you guys see what it was like when no one was in here? Oh my God. I got all these black screens and I hear one person go, fine. Or you guys look like this. It's awful. Just better that you're here. All right. How did we do these ones again? I forget. You want to get rid of the 4. Good. We want to get x all by itself, but in the middle. So I'm going to add 4. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Whatever you do to one side of the inequality sign, you have to do to the other. So I have 9 less than or equal to 3x less than or equal to 18. Divide everything by 3, right? So I have 3 is less than or equal to x less than or equal to 6. So now when I graph, I'm going to have 3 points on my graph. 0, 3, and 6. What kind of dots do I have at 3 and 6? Both close. Good. And remember, look, where is x in terms of 3 and 6 in your inequality statement? It's in between. So where do you think I'm going to color? In between. Good. And that's exactly what your interval notation would be. Start at 3, stops at 6, and what kind of notation goes on the end? Brackets on both. Great. Good job. Ooh, those are LSU colors. Whew. I wasn't thinking. Are there any more on this page? No. Okay. Next page. 2 more, and then you guys can start your web sign. All right, I got another in the middle. So what do I do? Okay, let's add 4 to both sides. So -8 and 4 is -4, less than or equal to 5x. What's 5 and 4? 9. Okay. Now we're going to divide everything by 5. Everything's not always going to come out nice and pretty, and that's okay. So on this graph, I have 0. Where is -4/5 going to go in regards to 0? To the left. Good. So -4/5 is over here. And where is +9/5? To the right. Good. On WebAssign, you're going to have to put it in between the 2 numbers that it is. So think about it. 5 goes into 9 almost 2 times, right? So it's closer to 2 than it is 1. They're not going to be super specific on that, just as long as you get it in between the right numbers. So think about our dots. What kind of dots do I have at -4/5 and +9/5? Closed on both. X is in the middle, so where am I going to color? In the middle. And what does my interval notation look like? -4/5, 9/5. Good, Justin. Bracket on both. Guys, make sure if you make a bracket, it looks like a bracket. Some of you have perfected the art of quasi-bracket, quasi-parentheses, so then I have to guess, and I guarantee you I'll guess the wrong one. So make sure I can tell if it's a bracket or a parenthesis. All right, last one. Again, guys, you're going to get fractions. It's okay. They're going to be gross. It's fine. You can handle it. But I want to get x all by itself. So I'm going to subtract 7. Hold on. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. So I get -10 less than or equal to 3x less than or equal to. All right. Got to get a common denominator. So common denominator between 7 and 2 and 1 is 2. So this is 7 over 1. What do you have to multiply the denominator by to make it 2? So if I multiply the bottom by 2, then I do the top by 2. So I have -14 over 2. And this stays as 1/2. So what's -14 and 1? Yep, so this is -13 over 2. And now I say, okay, I got to get rid of the 3. So I'm going to divide everything by 3. So I have -10 over 3 less than or equal to x less than or equal to, guys, this is just a fraction divided by a number, right? This says -13 over 2 divided by 3 over 1. What do you do with a fraction? Keep, change, then what? Flip. So it just becomes -13 over 6. Okay, gross fractions. I understand that, but that's okay. It's all right. So on my number line, when I graph, I have to have 0. I have negative 10/3. And I have negative 13 over 6. So think about this. 3 goes into 10 9 times with a little bit left over, right? 6 goes into 13 2 times with a little bit left over. So we're in the right spot. What kind of notation do I have at those 2 points? Both closed. Perfect. And where is x in regards to negative 10/3 and negative 13 over 6? In the middle. So where are we going to color? In the middle. Perfect. And then what does my notation look like, my interval notation? Bracket, negative 10 over 3, comma, negative 13 over 6, bracket. And it's brackets because the dot is closed. It includes the value, and that is because there's an equal to sign underneath. Questions?